Portents of Fear is a horror fiction podcast which is intended for mature audiences. Discretion is advised. Welcome, Fearlings, to another weird and horrifying tale made just for you. I am your host, Michulhu, and I'll be your guide into the macabre and mysterious. Tonight's story is Insomnia. No one noticed it at first. A solid black circle with 3 white vertical rectangles. The center rectangle was slightly higher than the other 2. Then the dreams came. It was always the same, a whispering light that filled one's head. Hector wasn't sure what those whispers were saying, but he woke every morning feeling like he hadn't slept at all. This lasted a week, and then, as quickly as it appeared, the light was gone, but the whispering remained. A few more weeks passed, and the whispering followed him into the waking world. He went to the doctor to find out that everything checked out fine. He just needed some rest. Dreams blurred into reality, leaving him almost catatonic. "Hector, bro, you still with me?" Mateo asked, jarring Hector back into the conversation. Mateo was his friend, more than that, a brother. They grew up in the same apartment building. Their dads would watch Sunday football together. Their moms would trade off taking them to school. Mateo would have helped Hector in any way he could. "Haven't been sleeping. There's this light, or there was a light, that whispered. Now there's just the whispering. Can't shake the voices. Doctors say I just need to sleep." This was a major admission. Anything that might have to do with mental health, anything that could call your sanity into question, was not talked about in his family. No one ever told him this rule. He inferred it by the way people around him reacted to those who had mental health issues. Being a man, what did that mean? To his family, it meant carry every burden quietly as it slowly ground you into powder. He hadn't noticed the symbol all around town yet. North Hollywood had its fair share of graffiti. What's one more weird symbol? Probably just a band logo or some other nonsense. Hector drifted again. "Bro, snap out of it," Mateo said. A real look of worry hung on his face. "Sorry, man. Just need some sleep." Hector got up, said his goodbye, and walked out the door 3 times. He couldn't tell which one of these times was real. Molly, a housewife who married young and had 5 kids before 30, was the first to notice the symbol. The center rectangle, she'd seen it in a dream by itself floating in empty space above her consciousness. It felt like a gateway to enlightenment. She noticed the complete symbol on her way to meet Jacob, the man who was 100% not her husband and 100% better in bed. It was spray painted on the wall of his apartment building. She stopped to examine it. The rectangles were all the exact same size. She figured the painter had used a stencil. Painter, she thought. But then she thought better. Was this even art? It called to her in a whispered shout, opening her mind from her third eye to the back of her skull, spilling its contents out onto the sidewalk. She frantically tried to grab all the things she hated about herself. The bigotry, the low self-esteem, the hating her children, the murderous contempt for her husband, and shove it all back into her exposed brain. She screamed while groping for the intangible thoughts made real. In the next moment, she was on her hands and knees touching the cold pavement. She stood, brushed herself off, and kept walking. An hour had passed. She'd stood there staring at that stupid wall for an hour. "I'm out of time," she thought. Her youngest would be done with school soon. She looked at her phone. 10 texts from Jacob, 3 dick pics. God, she loved this man. Well, her youngest would have to wait. She needed her adult time where she's a naughty princess and he's a farm boy with a big tool. She didn't notice the people on the street looking at her trapped in frozen horror, trying to free words their own throats couldn't speak. Blood streamed from her eyes, nose, and ears. She also didn't know that when Jacob saw her, he'd go mad and kill them both. Hector showed up to work the next morning, the whispering still in his ears. He'd passed by 3 of the symbols already. One on the bus, one covering a stop sign, one painted on the hospital's front door. But he still didn't notice them. If he had, he would know that they were multiplying, reaching out like tendrils, creating a long, spindly psychic web. His head hurt, and people, just the people, looked black and white, like they had been cut out of an old movie. Some even had the symbol on their foreheads, but he didn't notice those either. Working would center his mind, he hoped. He grabbed his supply cart and started making his rounds. Being a janitor wasn't an easy job. He'd worked at the hospital for 5 years. His father wanted him to go to school, be something more than a frustrated artist. But art wasn't a hobby or a phase or something he could just stop doing. He'd get a normal job, sure, but the creative drive kept him alive. Cleaning up after patients wasn't the job his first-generation parents wanted for him. They saw Hector going to college, the first from the family. He would become a doctor or a businessman. He was to become something great, growing from the seeds they'd planted. He felt their disappointment, but his path was set. The intercom blared. "Hector Sanchez, please report to the morgue, code 5A. Code 5A? How would a corpse make that sort of mess? Had to be a prank, he thought. He rarely went down to the morgue. The night crew handled it mostly. The elevator doors closed behind him, and he looked at the panel to press. He paused. All the buttons changed to the symbol, confronting him with what he'd been ignoring. But the thing that really put his teeth on edge, the thing that made him think twice before pressing one of them, was that the light coming through the center rectangle reminded him of his dream. The whispering tunneled through his brain like worms through dirt. Thomas put up drywall all day long in Pasadena. He just wanted to sit on his front stoop, crack a beer, and talk with his friend Efren from next door. It took an hour to get home. Traffic moved slowly over crumbling streets. He made one stop and picked up a case of beer. He knew exactly how much he'd drink between then and Sunday night. In the back of his mind, he could hear his kids complaining he drank too much, but he knew he could drink more. There were no house lights on when he pulled into the driveway. His wife's car was missing. Maybe she'd taken the kids somewhere. Good, he smiled. He noticed Efren's place. The whole building was gone. Thomas, tired from a long day, shrugged and assumed that Efren had decided to move without telling him. Fine, it just meant more beer for Thomas. Or maybe it was another one of those weird dreams like the one where he's the center of the sun and space is fading into nothingness all around him. He went through the front door, ready for a shower, some dinner, and to sit on his stoop, to drink a beer, or wake up from this strange dream. He might be on his lunch break and his workday is only halfway done. That would suck. His house was completely empty. His wife, Begonia, was crying in the kitchen looking at the stove. He hated to see the woman he loved cry, but he was so tired and she'd be better when he got out of the shower. Clothes came off before he entered the bathroom. There was no toilet, just a hole to a gaping pit. I'll fix that tomorrow, he thought. At least the shower and the sink were still there. He looked in the mirror. His face had changed into the symbol. The center rectangle glowed with a ghost light. He reached out to it and felt his arms start to fall apart on the atomic level. His hand disappeared, sucked into the mirror. This wasn't a good time to fall apart. No time ever was, really. But beyond the symbol might be the answers to life. Why the world was the way it was. Something Thomas desperately wanted to understand. So he leaned into it and dissolved into light. It only took a moment to cross over, and it only took a moment to learn that there were no answers, just nothingness. Hector slowly reached for a button, then stopped. Why was he taking all of this at face value? It was a good question. Closing his eyes, he counted to 10. Upon opening them, he found that the elevator had returned to normal. He pressed the button and descended to the morgue. The garage was a mess, and Penny had had enough. She'd promised Lloyd that if he helped her clean it out, she'd do that thing he loved. She'd even pretend to like it. Old boxes and junk littered the driveway, including the crib. They'd tried having kids, but Penny was infertile. It was never going to happen. They had talked about IVF and adopting, but decided to get a puppy instead. Now in their mid-30s, life had settled into a stable and arguably enjoyable rut. They would both work, she an accountant, he a production assistant. Penny always got home first and would get dinner ready. They'd eat and watch a movie. He would do the dishes. There were times, a lot of times, where he'd get home late and have to heat up his food. But that was part of working at studios, long hours. They lived well. The house was almost paid off. They leased new cars and they went on 3-week vacations each year. Last trip they went to Paris. They used to have sex a lot more, maybe 4 times a week, but now it was once a month. Lloyd would take her out to dinner, they might dance, they might not, and then they would jump into bed and have mediocre sex. It wasn't like either of them had ever been good at it or knew what they might be missing. Being adventurous was not them. Penny moved a box and looked at Lloyd, a shorter man with olive skin and dark curly hair. He held a shotgun, his hands shaking violently. "Lloyd, what the hell are you doing? Put it down," she commanded. His face contorted with anguish. "Yesterday, I saw something I didn't understand. A light, a whispering light. It came from a strange symbol. I don't know how to say it." "Okay, what does that have to do with you pointing a gun at me?" she asked, her flesh hot with fear. "I don't know, it just does. The more I studied that symbol, the more I thought, I really want to kill Penny." Tears started streaming down both their faces. Penny's teeth rattled. "Jesus, Lloyd, put the gun down. I love you. I love you too, but it doesn't matter. I'm using all my strength to keep from killing you. If I put it down, I'll beat you to death. You need to run. Get away from me now." His eyes illuminated with a ghoulish light. Sweat beaded across his now pale, sunken face. The gun raised up. Penny fell backwards, her heart jackhammering in her skull. "God damn it, Penny! Get the hell out of here!" The command barreled over her. Synapses ignited in her brain into survival mode. She flew out the back garage door. Lloyd fired. The bullet grazed her shoulder. She screamed, running almost blind into the house and locking the door behind her. The next bullet shattered the window on the door. Glass showered over Penny, slicing her cheeks and bare arms. She ran into the kitchen, grabbed a knife, ducked out of sight of the door, and groped for a phone that was still in the garage. She heard him step on the glass as he entered the house. "Penny, you bitch! You're the reason we don't have any kids! What a waste of space you are! You're not even a real woman, are you? Women can have kids. I don't know what the hell you are. I'm going to peel your skin off after I shoot you in the fucking head." His voice sounded alien. It wasn't Lloyd's voice anymore. The sound was a mix of several atonal notes, all crashing against each other. Penny kept hunkered down, holding her breath so as not to give her location away. The creak of the dining room floor told her he was moving closer. It became clear that she would have to kill her husband or die herself. They had a galley kitchen designed with a small laundry room on one end and pass-through from the living room to the dining room on the other. Unlike the rest of the house, which was all old hardwoods, the kitchen was tiled. She could tell that he was heading towards the laundry room entrance, so she stealthily moved right near the opening. He rushed into the laundry room and swung the gun towards the kitchen, but she was lower than he had expected. She swung the knife as fast as she could. The blade dove deep into his stomach. A crimson geyser erupted from his soft belly. The gun fell forward as he grabbed the handle of the blade, landing on his butt in the laundry room, gasping for air. Penny scrambled, grabbing at the gun and pointing it at him. His skin had turned gray, and the symbol he talked about was carved into his forehead. The only part of him that she recognized was his eyes. She saw so much pain there. "I'm sorry, honey. I'm not sure what came over me," he said with his one last breath. Then the pain in his eyes was gone. She put the gun down and started to wail. Hector's breath hitched as he entered the morgue. To the north were body coolers, 3 per column, built into the wall. Stainless steel tables lined the center of the room, all with bodies mid-autopsy. The wall to the south was covered with white canvas. The ceilings were 10 feet up and had 4 rows of buzzing neon lights. The wall that was supposed to be about 30 feet ahead of him wasn't there. The room stretched into infinity. He closed his eyes like he'd done in the elevator, but there was no change when he opened them again. The first body on the table suddenly sat up, leaning on an arm like he was lying next to a pool, and looked at Hector with corpse eyes. "Hector! Sorry, bud, but the closing your eyes thing isn't going to work this time. You're in too deep," the dead man said gleefully. Well, dead. How are you talking?" Hector asked. "Yep, I'm one of your corpses. Everyone in this room is. My name is Lloyd. I'm really fresh. The further you go down the line, the worse the decay is. I literally just died a moment ago on my laundry room floor. My lovely wife stabbed me with a kitchen knife. Boy, did that smart. Soon she'll be here, so we need to move fast." None of this can be real. You're dead. You're all dead." Parts of Hector's mind began to unglue themselves from reality. "Oh, it's very much real. Look, each table has brushes. You can use your victim's bodily fluids as paints for the canvas wall. Like I said, the further down you go, the more there is rotten decay, so you should be able to get a lot of interesting colors. Come on, try it out," the corpse said, smiling while holding up a paintbrush. Hector moved forward and took the brush. "That's it. Now, why not take some of the pooled blood from my stomach where my bitch of a wife stabbed me and start painting? You have a lot of canvas to cover, and time's a-tickin'." Hector, hoping this was some nightmare, decided that playing along with the corpse was the best thing to do. He dabbed some blood on his brush and started to paint. A low hum thrummed in Penny's ear as she looked over her dead husband's body. "Lloyd, my love, what happened?" she thought. The symbol branded into his head still glowed. A thought wedged itself into her brain. Him. She saw the word in big capital letters. Who him was, she had no clue. But there was a personality there, and it was emanating from the symbol. She stood and walked out to the front lawn. It was silent. No passing cars, no planes, no people, no bugs, no birds. Looking around, she noticed the symbol was on her front door and every other front door in the neighborhood. She went back to the kitchen and picked up the shotgun. She'd never held a real gun in her life. She studied it like it was some sort of alien artifact. Penny looked one last time at Lloyd and then left. Hector's urge to create pushed the blood-soaked paintbrush over the canvas. Red started to fill in the blank spaces on the wall, a project that no mortal could ever complete, with figures of humans dancing across strange backgrounds. The blood went on smoothly over the rough canvas. He stood back and scrutinized the section he was working on. The figures danced to a song that wasn't actually there. Every time he got more paint, Lloyd would smile at him. "There you go! You're a natural, Hector! I know why he chose you now." Hector ignored this. "I need more colors, and running down the aisle to find a decayed body with the right hue isn't practical," Hector said, his back to Lloyd. He was no longer scared and didn't question what was happening. He had a painting in mind, and it needed to come out. "True, but this is how your mind is set up, so..." "Wait, are you saying this is all in my head?" Hector asked. "Yes and no. You're tapped into something much bigger than yourself, my boy. Him. The one I just mentioned a moment ago. He's helping you to create this space in your brain. If you look into my eyes, you'll see what your body is actually doing right now," Lloyd said joyfully. Hector looked into the white film of the corpse's eyes and saw himself mopping in a hospital room. "I look so tired," he thought. It was an odd thing to think while staring into a dead man's eyes. "Fine, what about my colors? If I'm going to finish this painting, I'm going to need colors," Hector asked, losing interest in what he was doing in the waking world. "All right, friend, just give me 2 ticks. Lloyd's corpse seemed to be talking to someone in his own head, and then his body changed into a large pile of oil paint. Hector looked at the rest of the corpses down the row, and they too had changed. A thick, gloppy voice spoke. "Here you go. Imagine what color you want, and that's what color will be." "Thanks," Hector replied. Penny wasn't sure how long she'd been walking. She'd noticed something odd about the symbols. She could feel him in those rectangles. She got close to take a look. It was like looking through an arrow slit. Him turned out to be a janitor at the local hospital mopping a hallway. The symbols, now an extensive web across North Hollywood, were telling her where to go. The air smelled of rotting flesh. Mangled bodies rested in cars recently crashed. Corpses lay in the street. They all had the same symbol on their forehead, but not Penny. For some reason, her mind was clear. She knew she had to find him. He was the key. The closest hospital was only a few miles away, and the pattern of symbols seemed to be leading her there. She kept going, gun in her hand. Was this the whole world, she wondered? The painting was vibrant with colors that created shapes of creatures and people dancing in ungodly moonlight. Hector felt a manic push to create, filling in the canvas that could never be finished. Then something struck him, and his brush stopped. "Hey there, buddy, something wrong?" he heard the pile of paint ask him from behind. Is he draining my creativity? Like, that canvas isn't really a canvas, it's a layer of his brain, and he's stealing my work? What the hell am I painting on? Wow, that's amazing. You got it on the first try, buddy. Here's the bad news. You already decided to start. You can't stop now, the pile of paint said viscously. He examined the painting. It was his best work, and something was pulling him towards the canvas. His arms felt like iron chains, but that drive to keep going forced them up. He wanted to run away. It wasn't going to happen, though. Reluctantly, he went back to the canvas, to the brain he was filling in, one picture at a time. He glanced in both directions. He had painted so much that he couldn't see the end of the room on either side. How long have I been here? Time doesn't matter. Don't worry about it, Paint said cryptically. No wonder he was tired, he thought, then went back to work. The closer Penny got to the hospital, the stranger the world became. Oil paint dripped from the trees and power lines like some old cartoon. People had melted into the concrete. The symbol was on every wall, and the 3 rectangles in the middle of the circle pulsated with a hideous sound. She hoped to God that she'd wake up. Lloyd would be next to her alive, and this was all some sort of nightmare. God, please help me, she muttered. She'd always believed in God, but thinking about him in that moment forced her to confront the emptiness inside her soul. She noticed it when she killed Lloyd, when she had to kill Lloyd. It wasn't that God was dead or some other emo cliche. No, It was that God has never been there in the first place, at least the version of God she grew up learning about. The God, or gods, she was feeling all around her now were beyond her ability to conceptualize. She just knew they were there, watching her. Some with mild interest, others with contempt, and still more with alien detachment. Something was causing the world to tip into the void of madness and seemed centered on a janitor mopping in the local hospital which now loomed in front of her. Its strange, uneven, windowless walls cast an unending shadow over her, almost like a parent looking down at a disobedient child. She shook this feeling off and walked forward. The door took great force to open, but finally she was able to move it. Inside, the halls were arches painted all in the same art style. It looked like a computer program in picture form. It was ugly and inhuman. She knew the janitor was close. Hector, by that point, had been painting for his entire life. That's at least how he felt. It seemed like no matter how good the last piece was, the piles of paint wanted to see what the next piece would be. He'd forgotten what real food tasted like, or what it even meant to sleep. If he tried to stop, the paint would find some way, usually with a smile, to get him to keep going. His hand ached and blood weeped from his unblinking eyes. His knees creaked from squatting down to get the lower portion of the canvas. Everything hurt, and if he'd seen himself in the mirror at that moment, Hector would have seen an old man, what one would imagine Dorian Gray's portrait to look like. The voice told Hector to keep going, though. He was almost done, just a little bit more. Penny studied the man before her. His eyes were white. He had to be in his 80s, and all he seemed to be doing was mopping the same 1 square foot of floor over and over. "Sir, you can stop mopping. The floor is clean." Hector paused and looked around for the source of the voice. "Who are you? Where are you?" he asked, frightened. "I'm Penny. I'm 4 feet directly in front of you." "Sir, do you know what's going on?" "There are no answers. It's feeding off me, forcing me to create, not letting me sleep." He moved forward, groping for Penny's voice. She met him, taking his hands into hers. She noticed that he was crying milky tears. "Whatever you're doing, it's affecting the whole city," she said gently. "I know. It's the symbol. The more I create, the more it expands out from me. I'm unable to sleep. Haven't slept in years. My mind is a live wire, energy arcing out, creating a web that connects the symbols. It's killing people, isn't it?" he asked. "Unfortunately. Then I need you to do me a favor. Take my life and let me sleep." "What will that do?" she asked. "No clue. But I know the one called Him wants me to paint till I die, and I worry that will be worse than you ending my life. Please, I don't want anyone else to die," he begged. "Okay. Is there anyone you want me to talk to if the world survives this?" He nodded yes, and then told her who to see. She stepped back and fired. No one had any real answers on why North Hollywood erupted into violence over a 24-hour period. 40,000 people died. A week after Penny shot the bullet, they were still collecting bodies from all over the city. Investigations were called for, theories fed the algorithm, AI hallucinated facts, conspiracy theories were launched. It was a mess, one that Penny turned away from. After burying her husband, she received a ton of requests for interviews. How did she survive the murderous wave that swept the city? Was she in her right mind when she killed her husband? Was she thinking of dating soon? It was gross and very predictable. After 3 months, she found herself on a porch in Van Nuys. She knocked and waited patiently. An older Mexican woman opened the door, clad in black. "Mrs. Sanchez?" "Yes?" "My name is Penny. I have a message from Hector. Can I come in?" The frail old woman opened the door wide, and Penny walked through. An artist's mind is always open to forces beyond their understanding. One must be careful. What do you think his message was to his grandmother? Be sure to tell us in the comments. Thank you so much for watching to the end. You're a true fearling. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss a single terrifying story. Want more horrific stories? Click on one of our other episodes on your screen now. Good night, fearlings. Sleep well, if you can. Yes and no. You're tapped into something much bigger than yourself, my boy. Him. The one I just mentioned a moment ago. He's helping you. He's, instead of he is, sorry. I should have edited this better.
Yeah, you should have.
Hey.
I mean, editing during production is fine.
You do it constantly, so don't even.
But I'm the writer. I have a right to do that. Proceed.
Do you see the abuse I have to suffer?
I'm cutting that out.
Damn it, he's the editor too. All right.